and a 1. This is the Simpit. I'm not Shaun Cole. Hello, how's it going? We are here with Too Wide today. We had a bit of an issue. Dave Blair is having some internet problems, so unfortunately he's not here to join us. And Amir is actually out doing holiday stuff. He's in the States, I believe, seeing his family, and then he's got some other holiday stuff afterwards. So just the two of us here today. Thank you guys for coming to show up. I appreciate you. Shaun, how you doing? How's it going?
I am well, Devin. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you very much. And we're going to let Shaun go with the intro for the show today. Thank you guys for coming just quickly, and looking forward to it.
I was just going to say, we put it in the title, it was designed or it had grown to be 4 wide. And then, nope, we're 3 wide. And then shut down. We are only 2 wide today, which still makes for some great racing, right? I mean, you only need 2 to still be racing in my book. So, we are always on the search for a topic that would be worthy of discussion with the group, something that would motivate opinions, emotions, chat, dialogue from you guys as much as from me, Devin, and even Amir and Dave. A big apology from Dave Blair, by the way. He's upset Amir couldn't make it because he's traveling. Happy travels and enjoy seeing your kiddos there, Amir. And as far as Dave goes, he has internet trouble, so he's apologetic for not being here. But today's topic is one that was brought up. I believe it was Tofi who mentioned it in the suggestion box. We have a suggestion box on Discord for topics. And when I first read it, I'm going to admit, when I first read it, I was like, maybe. And then as I thought about it more and more, the topic really grew in my heart. And that topic kind of touching upon career mode. And in the title I wrote, love it, fix it, or kill it. Sort of like the, pick one, marry one, you know what one. And so same mentality. And where are your, and I'm going to turn it right to Devin in a minute here, and then I'll give my thoughts, and I want to hear from you guys. But what are your thoughts on career mode, specifically when it comes to sim racing? Now, before I turn to Devin, I'm just going to preface this with, as an observation, hey, Patrick, as an observation, my brother is a big-time gamer. He's far more of a gamer than I am. I'm a sim racer. My brother is a gamer. And as much as he's a gamer, he's an old dog, he's not super into multiplayer. So he's still buying all of the sports franchise titles. He's buying all of the Assassin's Creed games, everything in the world that still has a single-player mode. And on the gaming side of things, I'd say we've seen a reduction in a career mode across the board for a couple of reasons that I'll touch upon when I get to my opinions. But the main one being the multiplayer world that we're in now. Now, sim racing, going back in time, we were forced into career modes, longing for the years of multiplayer to explode to the point that it is today. With that said, looking back in time, is the industry as a whole being short-sighted on the importance of career mode? Single-player gaming is another way of looking at it. I'm not just talking AI. You can go AI against anything in iRacing. I'm talking about, I'll use my brother's basketball as an example. He starts off in high school or college, has to go through some lower ranked games, has to then get drafted into the higher rate, leagues and so on. And it's, fairly complex, but I'd also say that it becomes very repetitive very quickly. Anyway, I have a lot of thoughts on this since the topic came up. So what started as a really small idea in my head has really blossomed into a bunch of ways of looking at it. But Devin, before, and everybody out there, is this something that is overlooked? Is it important? Is it something that they might as well just get rid of in sim racing?
I think you touched on the main thing is almost like it's been forgotten. I think if you remember when the games first started coming out, we're doing that sim history thing. There wasn't multiplayer, right? And then finally, like Indy 800, like we were talking, a couple other titles where you had multiple people able to come play together as a group, right? And that was a big thing. And then as things went to console, it went back again, where it was like, well, a lot of things are multiplayer. And then it went back again, where you got local multiplayer, and it got good. And then by the time you get into like the 90s, 2000s, where you're really starting to roll, you see the PlayStations and the Xboxes and stuff like that, and they're coming out. At that point, it was really heavy single player, and everybody's like, "Where's the multiplayer?" Right? You could get the networking card for your PlayStation 2 and play a handful of games, but it wasn't like you were jumping online and having 30 car grids in Gran Turismo. Whereas the career mode was great. And then as time has gone on, you kind of hit the nail on the head, I think, in that it's almost like career modes have gone to the wayside. People wanted multiplayer so bad at the beginning, and then they started to get it, and the developers saw that that's where the money is, obviously multiplayer, microtransactions, that kind of thing, and they went hard on it. And I think that, yes, it has been kind of left by the wayside. The career modes have been, for lack of a better word, terrible. I mean, ACC tried, and I think they did at least gave it a good enough effort that it shows. But that's the closest thing to a career mode in recent memory that's come out that's any kind of good, right? Project Cars 3 was an absolute joke of a title, and just beyond the career mode, it was a joke of a title, so it was kind of hard to get into, right? But ACC tried. I think before that, probably Project Cars 2, right?
Sure. And even like look at the Formula One franchise, and they brought career mode in and out and then back in, and taking it more seriously. Now, the other thing that I do have to ask when breaching this topic as a sim racer is, well, is sim racing different? And I ask that, and I'm not trying to call out any other gaming ventures out there, but is there something inherently different about sim racing that means that our standards are actually different than the general gaming world? Because now, for me, I love competition. I race for competition. I actually game for entertainment, and I'm using this wording specifically to me. I game for entertainment, and the minute I switch to gaming, quite honestly, well, if I go play some game, I'm fodder. If it was a shooter game, I'm an amateur if it came to some building game, because the people who do that regularly are the aliens, so to speak, or at least the seasoned pros of that type of gaming. So when I go venture into a different genre, I really depend on that career mode. But in sim racing, I am really all about competition. But I have a few things that take me back in time that make me also question it. And I'm not talking about for me, or I am talking for me, but more importantly, what about for you? More importantly, what about for the industry as a whole? There are so many ways of looking at it. Now, one thing that I think, as an observation, watching my brother playing, again, I'll use the basketball game that he's current, EA, NBA, whatever, 2021, whatever they are. And I watch the career mode, and what I find is it's very simplistic and it's very repetitive. But here's the part that really bothers me. It seems like, for the most part, career mode, and tell me I'm wrong, but there's only like 3 or 4 or 5 levels to choose from. And you find yourself at some point where you're either dominating one level or just can't be competitive at that next level. And that it really kind of diminishes the ability to play an honest career mode. Because either you're the superstar and you get all the contracts and you move right to the top and, break every record in the league for the year, or you barely get drafted and play for the worst team and barely get minutes and end up like not even having a career mode.
That stands true. There's some variance in it, but that stands true.
So it needs to be adaptive in my mind to be properly effective. Like, for me, if I was going to design a career mode into a game, rather than let you determine the level, I would determine the level based on when you're going to finish your career. So if my career mode has 100 stages or 100 steps to it, I want to transition you with adaptive AI, adaptive conditions or challenges based on analyzing how you've done, and making it so it's actually going to be rather difficult to get those final achievements, but maybe a little more easy in the beginning. I don't know if that's been effectively done, though.
So there are a few games to point out while we're still on that part of the topic that have done a decent job at it. You have like the Metro titles. The Metro 2033, I believe it is, and the other two, Exodus and that. They did a good job in that they give you like a kind of a story mode and a combat mode, and then within the story mode and the combat mode, you have your 3 standard difficulties, right? So just as an example of a game that does it right, not something in Sim that does it right. There are some examples out there that have tried and have done a fairly good job with creating not a sense of like, oh, I can't beat this, or a sense of, oh, it's too easy, a good sense of challenge through the game, depending on your skill level. ACC, more in line with our kind of genres, did try to do more like what Shaun's saying here with the adaptive side of things, where instead of adapting though as they went, it's like you start out and they give you the series of tests, and based on those series of tests they set your levels, right? I think the best example that exists in our genre at the moment is probably Dirt Rally. So Dirt Rally, you can set the initial difficulty, I believe it is, where it's like easy, medium, hard, or whatever. But when you go into the career mode, you essentially start at the club level, which is their easiest difficulty, right? And then you slowly, as you win or lose rallies, go up or maintain where you're at, right? So there are some titles that have tried, but they're just they nobody's really managed to get it right yet. So hopefully, we're not the only ones thinking about this, right?
Sure. You mentioned Dirt, so I think of the Dirt franchise across the board at various times, and Gran Turismo. Trophy hunting, to me, is absolutely a form of career mode. So, one thing that I've really applauded Gran Turismo over years for is like the way they introduce you to the game and reward you faster cars and incentivize you to go get more silver, golds, and bronze trophies. Well, gold, silver, and bronze trophies, and leave you short at some point should you not get even high enough. So maybe at some point where bronze isn't even going to get you through certain achievements, needing to get that gold. So like a career mode for me doesn't have to be a story mode, which is where F1 is really looking at the story mode. I look at the basketball game. I'll use this all show long. It's a story mode. My brother's having conversations with his agent, with his coaches, with his trainers, going through drill days versus competition days, so to speak, and that making up this feeling of a story mode career. The only problem is I've watched him do it a few times, and again, it's painfully repetitive. And then I think, God, to do it right, you'd almost have to go back to the days before we had so many graphics, where you built storyboard games, where, even getting back to the root of gaming, and, you're walking down a path, you see a fork in the road. Do you go left? Do you go right? Well, if you ever played those games, they actually had like really complex trees, so that it was almost impossible to find the same path through the game twice, with the amount of variations and decisions that led to secondary decisions that might even disable other parts of the game because you chose a certain path. That is certainly not happening in the storyboard games that I'm seeing. And then you end up, well, if it's repetitive for $50, I find myself relying on the quality of the sim very quickly, is kind of what I'm getting at here. So despite it maybe being built in, like using Assetto Corsa Competizione as an example, yeah, but it was like so by default, and A, B, C, D, and now you're pretty much just into the game.
Like, okay, here's your new contract. You can finally choose a new car, and that's the most exciting thing you get. One thing I can point out there, Mizar, hopefully I said that right. Race Room has adaptive AI. Yes, there's a good example of a title that has the potential to do a good career mode. You can set up seasons and stuff like that, so you can kind of set up your own career mode if you'd like to, within Race Room, where you set up your own season. You go race your season with or without friends, doesn't matter, kind of deal. But having adaptive AI, and from experience, it's been a while since I played it, but the adaptive AI is actually pretty good. It starts out, pretty easy, but as it gets used to how you're driving, you get a fairly good sense of competition from their AI. And then physics and force feedback and stuff like that in that game is great as well. So there's a good game with a base that could do something like a career mode that could do something like that. But then we start to get into, so if the adaptive AI exists, the force feedback, the physics, all of that kind of stuff we know exists in various sims. you start to get into the question that Tofi posed with this topic in particular, the specifics of it. Tofi had asked, so you guys in chat know, that he's kind of more wondering like where people's preferences lie, whether it's in a career mode, kind of like how we're talking with the cookie cutter. You hop in and you're a driver for whatever X team, like you're a Mercedes driver, such and such name, and you are that driver. You run through his career, but it's basically just running seasons, right? 2018, 2019 ACC style seasons. Or are you enjoying the F1 thing where, you know, either you choose a driver or you create a driver, but you're managing your team, right? You're going through all of these variables with the setup, you're going through with the practice, you're going through with the money side of things, the upgrading for the vehicles, that kind of thing. And then beyond that, there's also kind of my personal, what I would like to see is like your old Gran Turismo style, right? That's what I would like to see come back. I know a lot of the games have done it, but Gran Turismo 3 in particular, when I very much so remember hopping in and you have your driver, and it's not crazy custom creation as far as driver goes and stuff like that. So we're talking, you know, early 2000s, late 90s kind of deal. But you could create your driver. You bought yourself basically a road car, right? I remember starting in the PT Cruiser more often than not because I thought it was funny to drive around in a cruiser. Or a Honda Civic, right? Like your typical kind of cars that people would buy. And then you get your licenses. Your licenses allow you to do certain races allow you to rank up to do more licenses, to do more races, so that you're not getting the over-involved F1 style where it takes you an hour just to get into a practice session and then another half hour to get into the quali and another half hour to get into the race and then 4 hours after the race to watch the replay and listen to the interviews and all this junk, right? And I'm being facetious, obviously, I'm exaggerating, but you know, you can see what I'm saying, where there's so much to those ones, right? And then you have the cookie cutter ones where it's just seasons like ACC. I would like to see a good middle ground. And just to clarify, I would prefer custom character. I would like to make, you know, my dude in the video game, and my dude does all the races.
Okay, so I don't know if I want to transition a futuristic thought of this right now because I want to go there. Drivatar concept. You know, my favorite movie in the world was, you know, not favorite, but Ready Player One, or, you know. Anyway, let's come back to that. The other, so looking back in history, I want to bring up the game Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. In my opinion, as far as a storyboard chronological game, they did the most with that at that point in time. That if you took that concept to today's ability, could be really amazing, especially with something as, you know, long lived as Porsche or Ferrari or your big marquee brands. But, you know, they really did kind of take you through that beginning to end phase. Now, it was very chronological. I don't think there were any detours in the career mode. It was very 100% linear.
Need for Speed Pro Street would be a good side example,
right?
Where you had a little bit more freedom, but yes, similar. I should have mentioned Need for Speed in the first place. That's what we should. They have great careers.
Yeah, and all of them. In fact, they're a career. Often there is no multiplayer. I mean, I think they've been added it since, but it's not been the focus. It's been a single player career mode game.
Yeah, split screen.
Well, when was the last real Need for Speed though?
Isn't it Heat? Isn't that the one that Billy loved so much?
I'm not.
I think that was it. I'm pretty sure it was Need for Speed Heat. I think that was the one. And honestly though, those games that's a good example of a good career. You reminded me of Pro Street. Pro Street's a big one. I don't know. Did you play Pro Street before?
I don't know if I played Pro Street. That might have been when I took a hiatus from Need for Speed after.
That's the one they tried to make a sim. The physics in it are more realistic than any other Need for Speed game I can remember, at least. That was the one where you had, it was all like events, kind of like how Horizon is. So it was like, you know, you had your parking lot events, you had drag races, you had drifting, you had circuit racing, and you could go into individual disciples. So if memory serves, there was five or six kings, I think is what they called them, basically.
Right. And
you went after the leader of each series. So you could choose which way you want to go. It broke off that sense of linearity. If you didn't want to be a drag racer and you didn't care about beating the whole game, then you could just be a drag racer, right? And just that alone, okay, what games have drag racing in them? When we're talking about careers and stuff like that, give us options of options of disciplines to choose from in our careers as well would be nice. Sure. But that means you need to include all of the disciplines. Like drag racing is barely anything.
Need for I'm sorry, the big one, Forza. Forza, do they have drag racing? Is it part of their career mode? I haven't taken Forza seriously in a while. And GT3, was that when they invented Gran Turismo 3? Was that the invention of drivatars for them?
I don't
Was
think so.
that
I
the
think that
one
was
where
4.
you'd hire your drivers and watch them do 24-hour races?
No, that was I think that was like 4 or whatever the
4?
in between one was. Yeah, 3 was like the last of the true GT1, GT2. It was very polished Gran Turismo 2.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna always default to iRacing in certain
5.
ways.
Deadman got you there. GT5.
Okay, the drive chart. I thought that was a really awesome feature, and I might be the only one who used it in the right way, and it's because I worked in a sim racing studio. So having Gran Turismo races going on in the background was like the perfect background fodder for the world of my studio. Shoot, I'd fire them up today if I had it. It'd be kind of cool to have them in the background even today. So, now I think of iRacing, and if you and yeah, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Nim Cross of iRacing right now, but if you would go back to the original concept of iRacing, it was actually a money structure, not a safety rating point structure. iRating, it was a money structure. So going all the way back to VRL, I believe it was called Virtual Racing League, Nim Cross. You paid for damage, and there's this whole, you ran a team. So getting back to the drivatar version of sim racing concept, what if you took something like an iRacing, giving it credit for physics and its multiplayer money ability, and you incorporated a real life parallel career mode to it. So you get rid of the safety rating, you get rid of the iRating, and you come up with a monetization point structure based on prize money for winning races. This is all virtual money. And having to pay certain administrative costs for your team and damage and repairs and things like that. And the point being, because it takes a certain amount of money to be able to go to the next step of the ladder. So before you can promote yourself from a Formula Wee to a Skippy, your team needs to raise funds and build a budget of, whatever their virtual, it doesn't matter the monetary amount, but as soon as you have 50,000, you can be promoted to the Skippy series. Bigger purses, bigger payouts, more expensive damage, and so on. So could you build a career mode that emulated, and again, I'm using the word drivatar because why? Because I want to be the pro Shaun Cole. I want to develop the Shaun Cole. This is the iRacing version. You can take the same concept and lay it onto F1 2000, whichever, pick your year. But 2 questions to my concept here is that something that could work, and would that be a fun concept for people to do? And then the other is, if it really did work, would you be willing to hit reset on your career because you kind of got to a certain plateau and you're like, you know what? I got to restart the career. I want to go back to Formula Wees and fight it out against the rookies again. But you're doing it in a multiplayer version. You've just taken the concepts of career mode and laid it onto this. And some could argue that that's what we're already doing because you're just semantically arguing iRating for monetization.
I would love to see that. Absolutely would love. We've talked about this before, paying for crashes in iRacing. All the other stuff aside, we've mentioned stuff like this before. But that right there, I mean, if you paid your monthly subscription or whatever for iRacing and you bought your content, everything was good, and that was the way they did the licensing, where you had a fake currency of some kind that you earned, and that fake currency could maybe instead of buying cars, you bought classes. So it was like your real money. Instead of buying the GT3 Mercedes, you bought the GT3 class license, and then with your fake in-game money, you would buy your cars so that you're still earning and paying, or you're paying for series. However it is they do that, that kind of thing would be amazing. I would love to see that.
I think it'd be so fun. I mean, now for iRacing, exactly, it doesn't work because iRacing has content and they need to sell you content, things like that, right? So creating a ladder system would then demand that they get rid of half the stuff they're not using very often anyway, to be honest with you.
Which they,
But
I mean, they charge for legacy content now.
You know, now me, and I swear I'm sitting here, I'm a little frustrated by the gaming industry in the last 5 years. And the reason I say that is they plateaued on so many levels and just went into this regurgitating the same level crap for 5, 6, 7 years now. And the reason I'm saying this, and especially since the beginning of VR and all that, but where is the first steps of a Ready Player One? And so I'm going to take this dreamy version of iRacing. We need to call it something else. I'm going to call it me racing. Would you? I wonder if you could do that, or would you get sued silly and lose?
Depends on how you spell me. The Nintendo might sell you.
I think you could do it. So me racing is the financial, the monetized career mode based version of an iRacing platform. With that, I'm taking their multiplayer, their built-in point structure. We just have to tweak the logarithm to be money and damage and all that. But that's just a couple of coder guys. We're good. And I'm going to take all their multiplayer, all that crap. Anyway, now I want to, we'll have to monetize our thing. But what I'm getting to is right now, we're all here. There's 34 of us watching, 2 of us here. That's 36 of us. Right now, our driver guitars should all be in like the general arena. And there should be like all of a sudden trumpets. The next street stock race right now. You know, and it's like at this point, I should be able to virtually go to my garage, jump in my street stock, and be transformed onto the next money-paying street stock race, where if I crash, my team's going to lose money. If I win, we're going to win money and get promoted to the next eligible level races. And I just, these concepts are like, what, forever old, right? I mean, none of this is new idea. And it's like,
it's implementation.
Why did they just stagnate and stop taking us? Because to me, that is the inevitable next level of gaming, is open arena. Steam should be a massive arena of, you know, honestly, people chatting and hanging out, right? I mean, they want to take over the world. In my mind, gaming is so big that Steam could eventually give something like even Facebook a run for its money by creating that.
So it's
arena.
happening slowly. You did ask where is it? There, it is happening. You can, if you have VR, you can invite people into your VR home and have your little avatars. Right? It's getting there.
There was this sick, weird, bizarro, half-built, Minecrafty game way back when called is it Afterlife? Second Life.
Vaguely remember that.
Second Life. This was the weirdest freaking thing in the world. This was already like, what, 10, 15 years ago? 15 easily. Second Life.
Yeah,
and
2003.
Like, hundreds of people would be there being weird. And it was almost more like an online pickup. So it didn't have VR. This is before VR, but they had, if you got within the proximity of people, you could hear them talking. Like, so it understood your proximity to other people. So if there were 100 people, you wouldn't hear them all, but you'd hear everybody within an ear's distance. Yeah, 2003. This is already 18 years ago. Hundreds of people simultaneously online in these open environments where they could go to, oh, there's like a roulette wheel over there, right? And you could go over there. Yeah, and people would sell things because you could make cool, like this is where I say Minecrafty. You could make paint schemes, right? Like in this open world. Wow, we've kind of taken career, but I guess it's applicable to career mode 2030. There should be a room, Stephen. Second Life was horrific animation. Yeah. So I've been very delicate about what I feel like its actual purpose was, because when I got in there, it was really creepy. And it was like, okay, I can't be here. This is
an
really
online dating thing. It basically is what it
was.
We'll get blood.
That might even be cleansed. This is like Craigslist. You guys know Craigslist is like Craigslist meets an online dating site. It was scary, but people made careers selling things, items, and there's like a currency involved. What I'm getting at, there's a monetization ability to this concept as well. For some people, it won't be important. They just want to get in, race. Career mode still exists. For others, well, I don't know. Couldn't you sell people a snazzier garage? Couldn't you sell, you know what I mean? There are so many elements that can be added to these things. And when I look at, and the reason I'm saying this with such passion, like, yeah, I know it, they're working on it, the versions, but again, I played that stupid game 18 years ago. That was when internet was still measured in baud rate, by the way, 18 years ago. That was before Facebook. That was before VR. That was so to have that not be expanded into really any gaming at any level, especially when you look at something like Ready Player One. All right, I've been ranting for like an hour. Devin, what do you take? What do you twist onto this?
No, I like the idea. That's where I would like to see things. Again, Tofi talking about the whole whether you want to be a pro driver or you want to be a U driver. I like the idea of a me racing. Everybody gets a me phone. You know, you have your as the virtual world or the augmented reality world gets more fleshed out, as PCs become more capable of actually running the equipment we have, because we at this point could make the hardware for Ready Player One, right? Essentially, like, we have haptic gloves, we have haptic suits, we have VR, we have the big here thing you can run on. That's the omnidirectional whatever board. You could do it, right?
Yep.
But it's expensive, and you're not gonna be able to run it without, you'd probably need one computer just to run the omniboard thing and a handful of your peripherals, and then another computer handling all of the other peripherals, and then finally a computer handling the game, right? Like, it's just there's so much to handle in terms of compute power, so it's not realistic to do it anytime soon. But I love it. That's where I go with things. Is like you essentially you join Steam, and Steam is your hub. Yeah, exactly. You join Steam, and instead of like people that want to be on their PCs and just hop in, choose their game, and go play can do that. But those of us that want to, we put on our headset and we go into our Steam home, and then we teleport to wherever to go. And like you say, you're sitting in some kind of lobby, you're sitting in your garage. Like, car mechanic simulator combined with iRacing, like, that would be pretty cool. You could have, like, if you actually learn how to fix your car, you actually learn how to set up your car, there could be bonuses to actually taking the time to learn how to do things like that.
So getting back to our current, we shouldn't be doing this live. We should be raising funds. So what if at the end of the race and you had, $18,000 worth of damage? What if there were two options? What if there were three options? A, you pay for it out of your winnings, your account. B, you buy the money, right? You can't buy licenses, but you can budget your team through cash to do repairs. So if you're a nightmare fucking driver, excuse my language, you just might have to either take time outs, or you're going to have to bust out on the Visa card. And then lastly, and this is the coolest one of all, or you put in the hours and you manually do the work, and then you get your repairs done at, a 90% discount or something. But now you're sitting there literally taking fenders off of your car in your garage, by the way. Again, how am I going to sell people more money? They're going to buy into the thing. It's a subscription, just like iRacing. But, if you have to spend all this time in your garage, wouldn't it be cooler if you had a jukebox? Wouldn't it be cooler if you had a two-story, garage and cool haulers and things? You know what I mean? So, money.
Well, and even just as simple as jacks versus a hoist. Like, you start off in a garage that's a floor and a jack and some jack stands, and you can work your way up to getting the hoist and to getting an actual proper lift and engine lifts, and like that. The concept is amazing.
And here's your pricing. Your hydraulic hoist or electric hoist. It's $10,000 dollars. You budget from your team, or it's $5 via your PayPal or Visa or
That's
whatever
where you have to watch, right? So that's where you start getting in. Like, I know we're just kind of the EA just called. They love it. They're in. They want loot boxes. Exactly. So, excuse me. My take on that is, like, so when it comes to the actual transaction side of things, you have to be very careful because you don't want to create a pay to win scenario, for one, right? So there can be monetary transactions, but you need to watch what they do, right? It's like there's the joke where years ago, and I believe it was Oblivion, it might have been Skyrim, but we all lost our minds because Bethesda tried to sell us a cosmetic horse armor, and we were like, if we're gonna pay for something, we want something, right? But then the games like Fortnite and that get real big, and the payment stuff inside games like that gives people benefits. So now it's like, no, we want the horse armor. We don't want something that actually does something. So it's like, right, you pay 10,000 credits in game for your hoist, right? And you have to pay for that in game for your hoist. But with your real money for your $5 or $10, you can pay to have that hoist, marketed in some way. You can fucking paint it, or you can have it switched out for different brands. You get maybe a bigger one or something, like.
Well, and you can make it so I play World of Warships, and there's a great example of a free game that's a pretty even playing field, and the loot boxes, so to speak, don't get you anything that is such an advantage that would make the difference in anything going on. The ships aren't better; they just look cooler.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes here. It's like, okay, well, as long as you keep the winnings side demonetized, so to speak, from real cash, it doesn't prevent the ability of any one driver at any time. But without loot boxes, you might spend more time off the track fulfilling the minimum requirements of the career mode that's built in. The loot boxes would let you kind of buy your way through the career mode in certain areas, so to speak. And it would give you, maybe you don't allow people to paint cars. You have the typical iRacing paint jobs. But if you want the trading paints version, well, that's a VIP tier.
As I was going to say, you could buy a sprayer for your shop.
Right. And if you haven't bought the paint booth, you can't do nothing. Now, does it change your ability to win? No, anyone can win in a black car.
Yep.
So I don't know. EA, I don't want to play with EA though. I think it's time that somebody built something so awesome that they could then take their incredible sim racing idea and spin it into a different genre and then knock EA off their horse.
As much as I hate to admit it, the only way that anything like this is going to happen is if EA does it.
Oh, of course.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like, looking at it realistically, as much as we all, like, I have my ideas, you have yours, chat, you guys have been going off in there as well. And it's like, I mean, EA's, the only way it's going to do it is if a big company that wants money, microtransactions, comes in and figures out a way to do it properly, right? Like, so EA buys, let's say, maybe not iRacing, because I like iRacing the way it is. But like, maybe EA comes in, buys R Factor, and studies iRacing, and then listens to the community, which we know is not going to happen, but just bear with me, right? So big company comes in, buys a good game that's a good sim with a solid engine, fixes the UI, because we all know that's terrible in R Factor, takes iRacing.
We're blowing up the UI because
exactly.
The UI, and this is the downside of the game we're designing. It's 2 or 3 game engines simultaneously, right? Your arena is an engine. If you're going to have repairs and that could be another. But we're really saying, nah, UI should never be used. There's no such thing as a user interface.
Well, you do.
You are the user interface.
We were talking though. You do want to keep it for the people that just want to race, right? The guys that just want to sit down, click go, and go, right? You do want to keep something in there, right? So it's a fine line you have to walk to actually manage to do it. EA's idea of making the same game every year has shifted to Codemasters F1. Yep. Incremental upgrades.
They're like, oh wow, someone figured out how to do the Madden-esque version of a racing title. Genius, we'll take it. And now Assetto Corsa is like, how can we change the name of the title every year and put out the exact same game every year so that EA will buy us? Because we'll take the $1 billion. Yeah, 1.1, 1.2 billion. That's what the acquisition was for Codemasters.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And they had multiple offers, by the way. EA was not the only interested party. Billion with a B, like a Dr. Evil B.
Assetto Corsa is they're a good mention in this, because Assetto Corsa, I think, is a good mention of somebody that's done it right. Because they did, so the AC1 was what, 2015, something like that. AC2, you're looking at 2017, 2018 when they started the early access, right? And then now they're toting AC2 is on its way, but it's not until 2024. And that's almost a 10-year development period with one game in between. And they had a career mode. So speaking of games that at least tried, right? AC's career mode isn't, I wouldn't call it immersive, but it's also not cookie cutter. It's not just running seasons, right? It's it's like 5 or 6 challenges per license level, and you can choose which challenges you do. You don't have to do them all, right? So AC did have a pretty good idea. So 2014 Olympus, thank you. So there you go. 10 years then. 2014 for AC. ACC comes out somewhere in between with the early access stuff, and ACC hopefully they learned from the mistakes with ACC, right? If they decide to use the same engine, we're gonna have issues. I really hope they don't make that decision. But more online with what we're talking about with career modes and stuff, if they learned about the having you do tests to decide where your difficulty level is, like they did with the career, if they were to space that out sporadically throughout the career, so like you're doing the R licenses, and there's like 3 or 4 R licenses, and then there's D license, E, whatever, D, C, B, A licenses that you're going up through, right? Every time you change from one major bracket, it did that again, so that you could reset your difficulty level to make sure everything's appropriate and stays on par, like we're talking about. And then beyond that, like we said, that if they learned not to just follow the single series and give you some options, if they learned to from their original game to make sure you had those options, right? You have front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, various different tracks, time trial, races, various different conditions, I would imagine, in the newer one. As long as they learn from those mistakes, that could be an example of one that does it right. It's potentially.
Absolutely. So getting back to maybe a Need for Speed title, and still taking the mentality of what I'm thinking again, career mode. Again, what is it? Do we love a career mode? Is it perfect? I mean, like, awesome. Do we need to fix it because it could be awesome? It's just not been done well enough. Or do they need to kill it because we're just here to sim race, right? I mean, that is the real defining line. And or is there really a parallel purpose for both? I'm going to bring up more of a Fast and the Furious, and I'm sure. So we have Test Drive Solar Crown now being teased, open world. I don't, they alluded to like gambling. So all of a sudden I was like, so did they basically take Grand Theft Auto and get rid of all the guns and violence and then give us an open world with cars and gambling? Like
that's what to me, it looked like a high roller thing. That's what I saw, is like the whole, like, you're a high roller, big money, nice car.
So not so much that gambling's in it. It's just that you're that jet-setting lifestyle. We fly to Vegas on the weekend and blow $1 million. All right. Because I actually gave a little thought to, again, using a Test Drive Unlimited mentality. And what if a game, and again, I think to build a game today, if you don't have a multiplayer aspect, you're probably building a dated game. So, like, to just completely build a single player career mode racing title might be a waste, right? Like, I don't know if, like, without a multiplayer, it can even exist. So, what if it was more of a Fast and the Furious mentality? Oh my God, Devin.
That's not my camera.
You've lost your side camera.
Yeah, it's okay. That's not the stream one. My other camera decided to just drive off.
I can ignore that and just move which camera I'm watching of you. But, but what if it was more about, buying yourself a little a Japanese, import, tuner type car, and you were spending money on things like, turbos and, flare kits and paint jobs. and then you are racing in open world races in a Fast and Furious. So getting back to the root of Fast and the Furious. But what if it was more like you pull up to somebody because it's open world, right? And you can see the ranking of their car. Like we're going to play Wreckfest, and so we might be at C class, but I can see how many points you have in your car. And then we can then make a wager for the race for in-game credits because gambling is illegal. And then you would decide, do I really want to go up against that guy in the 500-point challenger at that course? Because I'm assuming once you get into the racing moments of test drive, the open world becomes a little more closed world, like destination based of some sort. But I mean, could you build a game like that? Hey, hey!
Hamza, if you're looking for a rig,
I don't think he's that short.
most of them will fit as long as it depends on how big you are. If you're big boy, if you're 6 foot plus, you get a bit of weight to you, then you might have an issue with some of them. But for the most part, most rigs are fairly adjustable. They're fairly good for most heights. Anywhere from roughly 5'2", 5'3", upwards to a 5'11", 6 foot, somewhere in there. It's once you start getting above that tall mark and below the short mark that you start running into issues about. So
here's a problem with a lot of sim rigs. Not to take the diversion, but I love the topic.
Yeah, no.
A lot of them are going to racing seats. And unfortunately, the racing industry still, for the most part, thinks that everybody is like Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen shape, and that they're like 5'8" and 135 pounds wet. So the seats are all made for really, because like I'm in the seat and obviously it's very large and tall, but it's not all that big. This is still a little guy seat to an extent. So big guys, definitely be cautious. I know in the new line of R seats, I think that each model of the Sparko, the names are actually not like model tier levels as much as they're actually different shaped seats. So I think the Circuit is a narrow seat, and I think they make a different one. I don't recall what it's called, but it's actually the wider seat.
Let's be honest, you're sim racing. Get a fat boy friendly seat. Period.
Yeah.
You don't need it. I mean, being tucked in is nice, but to a certain extent, you don't want to be cutting off circulation and stuff like that. When you're looking, that would be a big consideration. Is more seat width than anything else.
Yeah, if you were a lot wider than me, you wouldn't fit in the seat, I don't think. I mean, maybe you'd squeeze in, but who wants to do that?
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. Like I'm small, and I don't like small seats. Oh, thank you, buddy. I'll be right there. Thank you. Sorry.
Ham saw the FGT is a pretty decent rig. I mean, it's got it. I mean, if you watch my review, I covered the cons fairly well on that one, by the way. It's got some things that take it away from being, awesome, and some things that are really nice for the money about the FGT one. The GT track, which is like $900. That's a pretty good rig because it comes with a good wannabe racing style, but it's a hinge, a bucket with a recline, which is nice. My problem also with most Formula seats, getting back to gaming, we've been talking all day, age dependent. Like I'm over it. Like I don't need a Formula rig anymore. I'm doing the Overpower, and it's an awesome rig. But it's just like any other Formula rig. It's like, yeah, but it's really low and really hard to get in and out of, and that makes I'm old. I elevate my rig to make it easier.
That's what I was gonna say, Hamza. If you're worried about things being small, and particularly the FGT is fairly close to the ground, if you have it in GT position, it's a little bit better, but you're still only looking at 3-4 inches there. Put it on a platform, dude. Get yourself, like Shaun and I both have done the same thing, I think. Well, I guess you took yours apart to do your Deathmobile, but Shaun had done the same thing when you look at his older videos as well. Build a platform. Take 2x4s or 2x6s and a piece of plywood. Build a little square platform. Put it on top of there and put it off in the corner somewhere so it's not out in the middle of your room kind of deal. And maybe put casters on it. Wheels are a really good idea if you're moving your stuff around. And a junkyard seat is the way to go if you're looking for budget friendly. That sort of thing. Like racing seats, they have their benefits, especially if you're going to do seat tensioners or anything like that. You can do springs and tensioners for the back, so you have a little bit of tension that way. Or if you're doing motion, that kind of stuff, you might want to use a racing seat. But junkyard seats are the way to go. And T300 is a great wheel. Local Thrustmaster Shell approved. I have a TS wheelbase over on that rig, so.
I would say it's a great beginner wheel, and it's a good intermediate wheel even. So
yeah, it's one of those things. Step up to the TS if you can, but T300 TX is a fine starting wheel. It's much better than starting with a Logitech or like a bungee cord wheel or something like that.
Yep. Awesome. All right, well, on career mode, did we solve it? I'm not sure. I mean, I think
we're both fix it.
Well, yeah, so here's the other thing. I always say this about sim racing. There are so many people who do this for different reasons, right? I think there are people who get into sim racing and they really and maybe they don't know it when they get here, but they find out they're really into the engineering aspect and they love data acquisition and looking at all the parameters of what going. And so then all of a sudden they start working with a team and they find themselves doing more engineering work than racing. I think you have guys who get into sim racing and then find they actually enjoy painting more than they enjoy racing. I got into RC planes, and it took me years to learn that I actually like building the planes more than I like flying them. So even though I got into that hobby, I was very specific to the building was my favorite aspect of the hobby. And when I look at it that way, and I just think of the Sims and what they're making, well, they really do have to appeal to a lot of different people wanting a lot of different things. The other thing is I've really been humbled in the last few years in particular. We did this PAX time trial. I swear to you, 10 years ago, I was no faster or slower than I am today. I really wasn't. I haven't lost much with age. 10 years ago, I would have been 90 percentile on that competition, with 10%, admittedly, these were the Gregor Hutus of the world at the time, 10% admittedly faster than me. And that same level competition now, I have dropped to 70%. And again, I'm no slower. It's just that the world has really stepped up their game, and there are a lot of tremendously fast sim racers, which then takes me to career mode. Well, why? Well, a lot of people might not be there to get their butt kicked every day, every time they go to race. That's not why they would do it. Yes, I love racing. Yes, I love driving cars, but I didn't do this to have my self-confidence shattered, So therefore, it takes me back to career mode, because for everybody who's not here with aspirations of being an esport champion, well, maybe I don't need that humbling experience. I need something that's more trophy based, more excitement for me than for whoever I'm not going to name any names, but I don't care about those esport pros making all that money. I bought the game for me to get trophies.
Elvis can take it. We don't sim race so that the teenager can come out and kick our asses, hands down, wipe the floor with us. We enjoy it and we like it sometimes, but that's not what we want all the time.
No,
well done, Elvis.
Power to those guys, right? And there should be platforms, and there certainly are platforms. And this is a great way to finish this on the point of love it, fix it, or kill it. At this point, there are a lot of avenues and platforms for that person. If you have aspirations of being a professional sim racer, making money, making a living, maybe launching a real life pro career through sim racing, pick your sim, because all the way from F1 20 whatever to iRacing, R Factor, Assetto Corsa. Am I leaving anybody out? There are others. Race Room, all have that ability. But what about the guys who don't want to be part of that? Right? Like it doesn't do me anything. Like I don't get on the same track as those people for the most part. Right? And then maybe somebody isn't even content with just like racing against their level even, right? So that really does take us to this whole fix it. Why? I don't know. I tell you what, if we had the Ready Player One version of sim racing with a car mechanic simulator and race financial strategy built in, and loot boxes for cooler driver shoes and driver tar when you're walking around the arena, I'd sign up yesterday. I'd cancel everything else and play that exclusively, I think. Because it would have a cool outside of, there'd be more to do than just get my butt kicked on the track.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts? We are really at the end of our hour.
Yeah, we're 4 minutes towards the end. Thank you guys too for popping in chat and kind of distract us a bit. So I think we're all about we're on the same page as far as the career mode goes. I think we'll mostly fix it. We have various different ways we'd like to fix it, and even with the chat there, I think most of you guys are on the lines of fix it. There's a few people that completely ignore it and do only sim racing, only online sim racing, which is good. That's why we do these, right? So we can kind of get the other perspective. So it's nice to see. One thing I did want to say real quick, Hamza, if you're doing a build, it's hard to see, and I'm not going to move the camera all over the place because of the nature of what we're doing. But if you can see, there's a 2x4 here. Go get yourself 2 or 1, depending on what kind of lengths you can. You want about 16 feet of either 2x4 or 2x6. Again, 16 feet. You're going to cut 2 6-foot lengths and 2 2-foot lengths. You're going to put the two 6-foot lengths next to each other. The 2 2-foots are going to close off the ends, and then just lay a piece of plywood down on top of it. Very, very simple.
Buddy, I only needed 5-foot lengths. What's up with that?
How tall are you again? But yeah, no, it's as easy as that. You might go smaller than 6 feet, to be fair. It just depends on how long your chassis is. The FGT, because of the way that it is, the floor mount goes all the way across underneath the pedals, so you might want to go a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but just measure how long whatever chassis is you're going to get, and that's how long you want your side piece. And you just build a rectangle and put a piece of plywood down on top of it. Screws, not nails. It'll be easy for you. Sorry, I got distracted again.
And Heiko, just to finish with this one topic for you, in me racing, which I'm starting a GoFundMe page for me racing, and just so you know, we're coming up at the top of the hour, and I'd be like, the next money-paying rally race, drivers to the line, right? Just like Ready Player One. And you hit a tree, and you'll either be playing Car Mechanic Simulator to fix your car, or you'll be paying for the labor through your winnings or losings in that case. So
it's going to play the wasted thing from Grand Theft Auto, and you're going to wake up at the hospital. You're going to have to pay $150 to get out.
Yes, for nudes. See, the beauty of this is, nudes could be something in your loot box. Sure. Do you need nudes? We can have over 18 content in our loot boxes. You want to deck out your garage with some nudie Snap-on posters? Sure. All right. So for anybody who's here who would like to play, speaking of a good career mode game, by the way, Wreckfest. Wreckfest has a pretty decent career mode built into it. At least in the age of like a trophy-based, somewhat linear career path. It's not linear. You have options. It ends up being linear in the end. But we are going to be playing Wreckfest. So if you're not part of our Discord chat, get in the Simpit Discord channel.
Posted.
We'll be rallying the troops. I'll give out the password right now. So if you go to Wreckfest, look for a room that is called Simpit Wreckfest, and the password is Pitcrew. Pitcrew. We're going to start playing probably for about an hour. We're not going to play too long, but we'll play for an hour. We get a big turnout. It might always go longer, but if depending on who shows up, we're going to start that up in probably about 5 minutes. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get some Discord going. Get some Wreckfest going via our Discord channel. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Thank you for keeping the comments going. Devin, thank you for hosting the show today. That was awesome.
Yay!
You want to bring us out? You're the official host with the on-off button.
That is true. Yep. So one more big thank you, guys. We will be back next month, back with 3 Wide. We're not sure exactly how's it going, but we'll keep you guys posted in Discord about that. Before we log off, as always, check out Patreon. That's one of the best ways you can help support the crew. What we're doing, Shaun and I both. We've got lots of reviews coming out. We've got opinion pieces. We've got the sim history videos being worked on right now. Shaun's got a couple rigs in the works. Lots going on. So patreon.com/Simpit if you guys wanted to check that out. I posted the Discord link. I will hit the enter button on that again if you guys want to join. For the Discord there, it is an open Discord, so there is an open public area. You guys are all welcome. Nothing is behind a paywall that we do in terms of races other than the monthly patron race. That is the only thing that's behind a paywall. Everything else is open. We have the Simpit Rally League, we have the Simpit Historic League, we have the Simpit Road Series, we have the Simpit Oval Series, and we have some random fun racing going on beyond that. So that's all open. Join the Discord, come hang out with us. Again, patreon.com/Simpit if you want to get in on the patron races and our other stuff. That's it for me. That's it from us. This is the Simpit. Thank you guys for coming. We will see you on the track. Take care, Shaun. Rolling credits.
Good going, everyone. Nice. Well done. Well done. Wow, we filled an hour on that topic.
Yeah, I think we did good. We did good. That was